First of all, thank you very much for the invitation to give a presentation here. I will give a short presentation on the TRI database, which is a database of plant traits, and I suggested it could be for Earth System Science. I make a question mark here in brackets, we'll see. And it's an initiative that has been supported by different organizations, like from Diversitas and just recently also from the German Center for Integrative Biodiversity Research, IDIF. And the database is managed and hosted at the Max Planck Institute for Biogeochemistry in Jena. So, plant functional traits, and in this context I thought I should maybe explain a bit, even after the nice introduction we had just. There are physiological, morphological, demographic and ecosystem kind of traits, and they are really kind of large different varieties of different traits. And some are related to leaves and other are related to roots and so on. And I really come from the other point of the spectrum. Like from my point of view, traits are measured like you go to the plant, you take one leaf and you measure one leaf. Or you dig into the earth and you measure a few of those roots. And then I was thinking, well, what has this to do with remote sensing in this context, and why should I present plant traits at this conference? So maybe we'll see if there's a connection. So, but people do collect plant traits for quite a long time, and they have collected them in different databases, but so far there has been no global database around. And that's why in 2007 we started the TRI initiative, and our goal was to develop a global database of plant traits to make the data available for trait-based approaches in ecology and the design of a new generation of global vegetation models. So it was quite ambitious, but then we also called it TRI, and TRI is not an acronym, it just means we know it's nuts, but we try anyway. So, since then, the TRI initiative has gained some momentum, and here you can see the data sets that have been contributed to the database and data requests, and now also starting publications coming out using the database. So it's a kind of continuous increase of data sets that are being contributed. At the moment, we have 220 data sets, and many of those data sets are already aggregated data sets beforehand. So it's a kind of second generation of data pooling. We have data for about 1,000 different traits, for about 90,000 plant species, and 2 million individual plants have been mapped in this context. And at the moment it's 4.7 million trait entries in the database. The traits are for all the different aspects that you can think of in terms of plants, and it has developed towards a global research network, and we have 167 contributing institutes, and here in red you see the different contributing institutes, and in green the measurement sites where those traits have been measured. What are the data in the TRI database used for? So far we have 315 projects requesting data via TRI, and most of them are in an ecological context, and some in modeling and some in other contexts. So I was surprised when I saw this. From the modeling there's only so few publications, but it's maybe because it takes a long time. You take the traits and it corrupts your model, then you have to reconstruct the model, and then you get new results, but you don't know why this is, and you have to think. It's a lot of work to include this kind of information. And it's quite a range of different models using traits via the TRI initiative. And it's not always like you take the traits and everything is nice. No, it's probably the other way around. And the first result we saw when we had this data aggregated, and we looked for the variation of traits, and we looked at the variation that is within plant species, and you have heard there are about 400,000 different plant species on Earth, and on the other hand, within the plant functional types that are usually used in the context of vegetation modeling. And then we could see that in, I hope you can see the light gray here, These are the plant functional types, that is the variance represented by the different plant functional types, which are basically used in the vegetation models. And in black, it's the fraction of variance that is represented by the different species. So if you look at the species, then most of the variance of the different traits here, which is from sigmas via specifically area, which is the ratio of leaf mass to leaf area, nitrogen concentration, and photosynthetic capacity here, you see that quite a lot of variation is represented by the different species. So small variation within species and large differences between species. But within PFT, you see that for some traits, a lot of difference is represented between PFTs, but for some of the important traits like leaf nitrogen content, leaf photosynthetic capacity or phosphorus content, only 30% of the variation is represented between PFTs, and 70 to 80% of the variation is within PFT. And that was a kind of wake-up call to the vegetation modeling community, that they had these plant functional types, but they realized that much of the important variation is within plant functional types. And this motivated a first kind of case study, conceptual analysis to implement some of this variation we see within plant function type by climate relationships. So in this context we use the JS model, which is the land representation in the Max-Planck Earth System model. And two of the relevant traits were varied with climate, then within PFT and with climate. And so if you look at the global distribution of measurement sites for this, it looks nice. Especially if you look for SLA, it does not look so nice. If you look for VTmax with photosynthetic capacity and Jmax, there are not so many dots. And then if you look for trait relationships, in general what you see is there is a lot of scatter and the pattern. But if you have a lot of data and there is a clear pattern, but see that, or we did realize that doing this conceptual analysis for some of the PFTs and for SLA, there was quite a lot of data, and there was some correlation that we could identify that we could then use to represent variation within PFT. But for other traits, like especially for photosynthetic capacity, for different plant functional types, there were only few data available. Even though we have this global database, for some of the plant functional types, there were only like data from 9 sites, 85 measurements. Well, this is nice. They're nice R square, but this is probably just by chance. Then we did 3 experiments, which I will not go into detail. Then, by the end of the day, and probably after a lot of work, which I did not do myself, but we did find out that the variable parameter approach improved the distribution of dominant plant types. Here you have the original. Here you have the distribution of dominant plant types. If you just take the mean of traits, so this did actually not improve. And here you see the variable parameter approach, and here you see for comparison an observed map. The improvement is not very obvious, but the thing in this, taking this variable parameter approach did not screw up the model completely. At least in this context. So that's why it's still a concept analysis. Other parts of the model we still work on a lot, I think. So the next example I would like to show, example from a French project which is called Diaz, and in this context we are using mutation plus to scale plant traits from individual measurement to the community or ecosystem level. It's headed by Philippe Chollet and Eric Garnier, who has already been mentioned. So vegetation plus, well, maybe I first
take this slide, so vegetation for grasslands would be 1 square meter. Here measured all different plant species and the abundance and the species name. So the information per site would be like georeference and observation date, the number of plots per site, and plot size. Plot size for grassland would be about 1 square meter, and in tropical forest that could be 10,000 square meters. So species occurrence and abundance is measured per plot. And in France we have 100,000 of those plots all over for grass all over France. And France is a good kind of case study because there are large environmental grades across France from Normandy to alpine meadows and Mediterranean climate. And but then what we would do, we would take the patient plot with the species tree, and then we don't have the measurements of the tree from that place, but we would take the trait try database, and this is like a species by species. Here would be traits observed within a site, a plot, and measured directly, and here would be traits taken from the database. And then it helps that within species the variation of traits is rather small, so the correlation between the directly observed at some of those plots and the traits taken from the database have a high correlation. So we would then use those data to scale from the individual from the database to the community at the plots, and these would then be different plots all over France, and we would take some environmental measures and use this to trait environmental correlation. Again, it is even an ecosystem that the correlation between plant trait and environment, here is trait and here environment, there is some, but there is more noise than pattern. You could use this pattern to go from the individual plot and cycle to derive maps here for French grassland for different. We implement then this kind of, or this into the French vegetation model. Here you see the trait for split leaf area, and here you see the trait for grassland for photosynthetic capacity. And he implemented, and Nicole did work, he implemented this into the orchid and compared this to the standard version of the orchid model, and sees some difference, but there's also some consistency. But even for France, for French grassland, including this great variability in plant function with one functional type had some effect on the modeling output. And on the other hand, it's nice, and I think it take quite a lot of work that in the end could become consistent. I think the first parts were just the model was screwed up, and then he had to work on it to make this all consistent with the new measurements. So I don't know if you can see the globe here. These plot data are available on the scale, and within a project of the initiative, we are collecting a data of the plots at global scale and would to link this with plant species trait information, and this could then be kind of linked to remote sensing potential. So this I would like to thank you.